controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
Who's got a sweet tooth?
Me.
Do you?
More than you, because whenever we
Yeah.
end a restaurant dinner and it's like, do you want to see the dessert menu? I'm like, of course. And then you were like, oh my God, crazy. You're crazy. My family never had dessert. I'm like, can you just relax? I want dessert.
Oh my God, you're dragging me so much today.
Well, I'm like, if we're at a nice dinner, we're getting dessert. It could be the best part of this dinner.
Yeah, but I am usually so full at that point, and I'm just a savory kind of guy. Savory kind of guy. I'd rather just have more of the mains, to be honest.
No, there's a different part of your stomach.
Okay, you're a scientist. Stop saying that.
Yeah, no, it's fully wrong.
Okay, so we are going to talk about artificial sweeteners today. They're obviously very popular. You know, if you don't know what it is, it's just an alternative to sugar. I think there was a lot of discussion around sugar through like the 90s and the 2000s about how quote unquote unhealthy it is, or how it's used in so many processed foods, and it's in our cereals, and we put it in sodas, and we have it like even in our yogurt and all these things. Our milk has sugar. And so artificial sweeteners came out, I think, primarily as like, wow, look at these things that are almost effectively 0 calories.
Yeah.
And so it was a way to replace something like a Coke with a Diet Coke, not be worrying about like weight gain or diabetes or certain issues associated with sugar, say like dental care and things like that, was, I think, the main excitement around them. But now they're starting to become a little bit controversial.
We're in the backlash era of the artificial sweetener. So the examples are aspartame, which is 200 times sweeter than sugar. There's sucralose, which is known as Splenda to most people, 600 times sweeter than sugar. And then saccharin, which is sweet and low, which I think is like the pink
sweet and low, sweet chariot.
What?
You know that song?
I just went cross-eyed. What is that?
Isn't that like an olden days song? Sing low.
Someone who's like older.
Sing low, sweet chariot. Come carry me home. You know that song, don't you?
No, I mean, like I'm gonna say yeah, because I don't want to feel like a
Swing
loser.
low. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay. But sweet and low is like, I think, not that song, which was saying the pink packages in America. I picture this as America. Like you're at a diner. And you know, like they bring you the sugar and the cream.
Yeah,
and
I always
pink,
just thought, you're
low.
right. I thought that was maybe Splenda. But you're right. I always assumed those were artificial sweeteners. I figured the white was sugar, the brown was brown sugar, and then there's a pink and a yellow one usually.
The pink is, in my head, sweet and low. My point is that like they're advertised as Splenda, sweet and low, blah, blah, but they're saccharin, which is a really funny name, is the actual chemical compound. And then there's
I would name my kid Saccharin.
Doesn't saccharin also mean like sinful?
Oh, does it actually?
Yeah, okay.
Why would you know that?
I don't know, because I've been laughing as
You
I read
couldn't even
these.
say pestle earlier.
No,
now
I've
you're
just
like,
been...
saccharin origins come from the 1920s.
Saccharin, a sweet-tasting synthetic compound. Okay, whoops.
Yeah, side note for what? No? Not at all?
Overly sentimental, mawkish. A saccharin love story is like a cheesy. I was wrong. Wrong. So it's...
but it's cheesy. It should be a sweet love story, not a cheesy one.
Yeah, cheesy, salty, but we're talking... Okay, we're side-noting.
Okay.
We need to get back on track.
The other one that you didn't mention that I'll bring up is stevia.
Okay, so, well, that's not synthetic.
Oh, you were saying synthetic.
These are synthetic. Aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, made in a lab. Stevia is from a plant that grows in South America.
Right,
so
okay.
it's quote-unquote natural. More on that later. And there's also monk fruit extract.
Yeah, and there's a handful of other ones, but those are definitely like the most popular and tend to be in most foods that you would be buying that have artificial sweeteners in them.
And the point is that they're so sweet, as we said, like 700 times sweeter than sugar. Therefore, you need so much less of them to get that sweet taste in your mouth that they end up being low to like negligible calories.
Yeah.
And essentially, like the sweet, it's called G protein coupled receptors. It's like how the ligands and binding of your tongue to sugar to make you feel that something's sweet, like the receptors in your brain, they get triggered by these artificial sweeteners. But because you need so little of them, or because they aren't really metabolized by your body, a variety of different ways, depending on which one, leads to your body not actually getting the calories, but getting that bang, that sweet
what your
taste
mind is craving
in your mind, and that is how they work.
Just the other week, you were talking about some like spoons and stuff that were being developed kind of with this principle in mind, but without actually being a chemical that you can ingest, right?
Yeah,
It was like it would stimulate those things on your tongue, so they would trick your brain into being salty or sweet, but you wouldn't then even be ingesting it potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is like the ingesting version. It's still going into your body, but because it's such small amounts, they effectively call them 0 calorie.
Yeah, some of them are like 4 calories, I think aspartame, but like again,
Although stevia, I don't know if you were just going to say this, but stevia is different in that your body doesn't metabolize it.
doesn't.
Yeah, so that is why it's interesting. It just goes through your body. In that sense, it is still like extra sweet, more sweet than sugar.
Yeah.
But that it's different in the sense that like, yeah, your body, the way your body metabolizes a certain part of it, it just like doesn't.
So the sweet and low, like
piss and poop it out.
the saccharin, the overly cheesy, that's so confusing. The saccharin, for example, like sweet and low, when you get those packages, most of that little white powder is just like maltodextrose. It's not even the thing because you need so little of it to get that sweet taste. They're just adding powder in so that it feels like you're adding something to your drink. Like that's part of the mechanism. You need a lot more sugar to feel the sugary taste than you do these artificial sweeteners. That's how they work.
Yeah, I had read that. And that, I mean, obviously these sugars also don't always taste like sugar. Like most people can tell a Diet Coke from a real Coke.
Really? I never...
You're crazy if you can't. But now they have like Coke Zero and stuff where they've tried to modify the taste to be original taste. But it's interesting because some people became so into Diet Coke that they actually prefer that taste. So it's like Coke wasn't then trying to turn Diet Coke back to Coke. They were like, we need a third product that tastes like Coke, but is 0 calories. So that's Coke Zero.
So
we're not sponsored by Coke, by the way.
No.
I'm not like hyping up Coke the brand, but obviously soft drinks or Pepsi or pop or whatever like are probably one of the biggest areas that people are consuming either large amounts of sweeteners or sugar, to be honest.
Well, okay, I thought it was interesting because it's in other things like ketchup, whole wheat bread. I thought that was interesting. Like I was looking at some of the whole wheat breads that we have, and I'm like, oh my god! It's
so that
in
it's
there.
not like inflating the
calories,
count,
and like there people like who are buying whole wheat bread are probably looking at the back for the. They're more likely to calorie count. I assume.
Totally. Yeah,
salad dressing, and then for me, it's the granolas and the cereals of the world that have a lot of, or can potentially have a lot of these artificial sweeteners because. Cereal's delicious, and sometimes they are relatively low cal, especially those like granola-y ones that I love. As a white person, my culture is cereal.
So you would think on the surface that that's not necessarily a bad thing, and we're going to talk about whether it is or not, but the idea being actually that's great. Like these things that potentially people are already including in their lives, having cereal every morning, having bread every day for breakfast or whatever, sandwiches, if we can take out half the calories, then I think the idea was like maybe this will help reduce the risk of like obesity or those kind of issues, diabetes in society. And like I said, even dental issues. Like so in your mouth, sugar promotes like different carbs actually promote like bacterial growth, whereas a lot or almost all of these sweeteners don't do that. And so it's like, okay, great. Like the breakdown of teeth could even be helped. And so I think it was really exciting when these things came out. And I even saw a funny little story that when they like accidentally discovered aspartame because...
Oh, yeah, they tasted it.
Yeah, he was like trying to solve how to get rid of ulcers and like spilled some aspartame and then like licked his finger and was like, that was sweet.
That's also how sucralose was. It's like, who are these people in labs who are just like, let me taste the powder?
Yeah.
Although kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you know, I guess they would have known like what the chemical was. Hopefully they knew it wasn't going to like... Oh, well.
Okay, ASAP Science is actually not going to tell you to lick the powders in your lab, but it is interesting. And back in the day, there was definitely not the same type of like regimens around science in general.
Or there's just like hundreds of scientists that are dead.
Yeah, or just like, whoops, wrong one. That one didn't happen to be arsenic? As good as stevia. But I do think that this topic is still very much controversial. There's no black or white around it. Like every paper I read gave me conflicting information in a kind of hilarious way. Like people are passionate on either side of it's good or it's bad. And truly there is not an answer, but there's a lot of research around it. And I feel like there's a lot of, it's like there's scientists who like draw a line in the sand and they like decide which side they're on. It's like the vibe I'm getting from these studies.
Yeah, agree. And it's definitely not settled science, but more and more, I think we're seeing some of the issues with it, especially because now more and more we're seeing it en masse, right? Like it would have been slowly introduced to people, but now we have like decades of people consuming these drinks. We can run studies on them. It's important to remember that there are vested interests. Like this is a huge market. Even some of the biggest companies in the world are using this as a marketing tool to have 0-calorie drinks or foods. So there's a lot of money around this on particularly the side of like selling things, right?
And a study between 2007 and 2012 found that nearly 50% of American adults report regular consumption of foods containing artificial sweeteners, particularly sugar-free beverages. So like that sugar-free beverage concept is like a recent thing, which I think is why so many people studied it and why we're getting all these results right now, because it takes time to sort of see what's going on.
Some of the conflicting results I would just like to mention. Like, so there's, been a lot of concern about cancer, whether that's stomach cancer or other cancer.
Aspartame, right?
Yeah.
I remember thinking...
Yeah, back when we were in university, it was like...
give me cancer.
Yeah, so back, honestly, when we were in high school, university, because it had become so popular, suddenly they were doing all these studies on mice and being like, the mice are dying, getting crazy tumors, all these things.
And rats.
But then the other side came out and was like, okay, but they're giving them like the most insane doses of aspartame.
And know what we love to say, the dose is the poison.
Exactly. But
you can give a rat enough broccoli to give it cancer.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like it would probably be like in a pill or powder form.
Sorry,
they're not
like
feeding them
shoving broccoli florets down like a rat's mouth. Although, oh god, we still have to do our animal.
I mean, the same is true
episode.
of humans. It's like you can eat too much of anything good, and it can sometimes become toxic.
The amount of artificial sweeteners they were giving the rats and mice was, I'm going to use this word, insane, to the point that no human will ever consume that.
But still worth knowing. It's still like valid science to be like, at what stage do these amounts?
But the idea that aspartame causes cancer in humans is false. So it's like, I don't know if it's good science because everyone thinks that, but it's not true. And they've never been able to prove it in humans. And the amount was completely...
You're right. What I'm saying is like, it doesn't invalidate the research. It sometimes invalidates the extrapolation. Like those researchers may have just been trying to find the limit of aspartame consumption. Yeah. A lot of times people who are running these studies aren't the ones running with the headlines and saying like aspartame kills or chocolate cures you. You know, they're like studying something nuanced that is interesting to know, but isn't necessarily going to have a huge impact on like the overall industry. And then it's like, of course, a conversation. But
I think it's
should say there are studies on both sides of this picture of cancer.
Wait, really? That's not what I read.
No, I know. At first I was reading like, okay, more and more we're not seeing a correlation to cancer.
Yeah.
But there still are studies that come out. That
outside of rats and mice?
Yes. And same with possible links to
Show
heart
me
disease.
show me the receipt. I read a recent study where they were like so adamant that it wasn't causing cancer.
Okay, well, I just in this moment don't have those studies.
Oh my god! I flipped the table.
Do you want me to start looking?
Give me those references.
You talk, and I'll see if I can go back to.
So my understanding is that these studies were done solely in rats and mice with such extreme amounts of artificial sweeteners that when you think about cancers and cancer's mechanism as this complicated thing, you can get cancer in hundreds and thousands of different ways. It's about a mutation in your DNA that happens randomly. And so the amounts that they were giving them was so exceeding what humans would ever take that it was obviously leading to the headlines that aspartame causes cancer. But in no way should any human ever think that that is true for them. And there's been no way to prove that would happen in humans. And it would not happen based on the small amounts of artificial sweetener that we consume, even if you're consuming a lot.
Okay. I will have to I agree. Most research was like there's not. There's been a lot of fear around it, but most research finds there's not. But I think when I get into sort of my main study and we touch on the microbiome, I think now that's how it's being brought up. Okay. It's like the changes in your body are potentially leading. It's not, if you know what I mean. And then interestingly, counterintuitively, preliminary studies indicate that the consumption of these kind of products are associated with obesity and metabolic syndrome in mice, decreased satiety, disturbed glucose metabolism, and weight gain, which is odd. But again, I'm going to kind of touch on that. in my main study, which I could bring up now.
Yeah, do it now because I'm like, we're battling it out today. So I was about to be like, I know why that's not true, but continue.
You know why what's not true.
No,
I
I'm
have
just like
literal proof from 2022.
I'm literally
girl.
like, do we still have that like button that's like debate time?
Oh yeah. No, we don't.
But I'm ready to fight. I'm gonna put down my mic. I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna like bring it on.
Okay. Well, I have.
Yeah, bring it on.
Someone's upholding the fucking capitalist industry. I'm tearing it down. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, someone's gonna get sugar back in her books.
Yeah, but the people who are putting sugar in the foods are also putting artificial sweetener, which is way cheaper for them.
Do you want to fight?
We're fighting.
Okay, go off, sis. Okay.
So the big conversation I'd say in the last handful of years, but especially in the last couple of years, as bigger like meta-analysis
and false. Okay, so according to my analysis, it was actually a 4-year. No, I'm kidding. Continue.
So we're going to talk about the microbiome. So the microbiome is sort of like your microbes in your body.
You're like your microbiome.
It's your microbiome.
So your microbiome is actually it's your microbiome.
Say like all the bacteria in your stomach and on your body, but in particular, people think about like now we know in your gut the bacteria that exist there can have such a big impact on you, and the food that you give them or the things that go in your body impact that colony. So outside of artificial sweeteners, that's why there's so much emphasis on gut health now and how that can be linked to depression. It can be linked to cancers. It can be linked to all these other issues when people eat like so much processed food versus when people eat like foods with like high fiber and foods that tend to be quote unquote good for your microbiome.
We have a video on it that I think I still rewatch sometimes when I want to know about it, what your poo says about you. And we ate probiotics for a certain amount of time, and then we tested our poo before and after, and we had a lot of experts come in and explain the microbiome, and it was fascinating. And a lot of prebiotics, which is like food for your microbiome, it always sticks out to me that it's like garlic, onions, all these whole foods, which sometimes I think people think like, oh, I need to go get a stinky yogurt and take like a nasty farty like pill. But really it's like those are probiotics, which is actually you're eating bacteria
that
yogurt go into your gut.
Probiotic.
The probiotic yogurts or the pills. Prebiotics are like the food for the quote unquote right microbes in your gut. So when you think about processed food or even sugar or like what sugar's in, you start to not think about prebiotics. You're thinking about these things that can like impact and essentially like have certain microbes take over in a sense.
Right. Change the composition in a way that can impact. Literally, the thing that's been in the last decade the most surprising is your mental health.
Yeah.
Right? Like obviously your physical health, but now realizing we've talked about fecal transplants, which if we haven't done a pod episode,
we have.
Whoops, I don't have a memory for anything. Who am I? Where are we? So ultimately, it's like somebody who has a quote unquote healthy microbiome, or somebody who's not depressed. They can like take their fecal transplants, put them in someone else, and impact their mental health to somebody who may be suffering from depression.
And you want diversity. I remember the number that we were getting would be like, you have a high diversity or a low diversity.
Yeah.
High in their case.
Yeah, it's not just
good.
the absolute amount. It's like wanting
it's like
different
you
kinds.
want diversity.
But to be also, I'm going to keep talking about my study, but just as a big caveat, this is such a new field of study, and there is also a lot of sort of like, exploitation is the wrong word, but there's a lot of products out there that are claiming they understand this, and they're going, buy this probiotic because it will help diversify your gut, but they don't actually know yet
hello,
which strains.
Kombucha on the scene. It's like crazy that now I go to a grocery store, I'm like, this fermented tea is taking up a big chunk of Loblaws right now.
I would say
crazy.
That's not even the worst offender, because you can now buy pills for like hundreds of dollars that are like this strain of stomach bacteria that may not be a bad thing, may be a good thing, but right now there's not enough research.
I did that.
Well, because you were having an issue, and it was like, what? It doesn't hurt to try.
I take a lot of antibiotics because I get strep throat. Okay, you're judging me. I'm a child. Yeah, and then my doctor was like, just take this. And it was so much money. I had to go to Whole Foods with all the rich people in Toronto and I was like, oh, I'm going to go buy the probiotic. They're like, I scan it, $140. I was like, you're telling me this is $140? Like, you kidding?
So what I'm saying is there's a market there to exploit these beliefs that aren't fully fleshed out yet, and certainly not to the degree that scientists or doctors are able to say, just take this probiotic and this one and it'll like change your stomach.
Yeah, $140. It's not fleshed out to $140. That's for sure.
But having said that, now I'm going to talk about why the microbiome should be taken care of. Is so important, because the first bit of research on this came out in 2014, and it suggested that artificial sweeteners were linked to obesity and a microbiome change in mice. The world of science blew up. Apparently, people
He's reaching.
No, it did. You can read about it. So many industries came out and tried to discredit the study, showed where it was wrong, why it wasn't statistically powerful enough.
It's only in mice.
Yeah, exactly. So now, last year, 2022, some new research comes out. Its results back this. It looks at saccharin, sucralose, aspartame, and stevia. So kind of like the main hits. You know what I mean? It's looking at the main
you're stop. You're talking
Who am
like
I
a
becoming?
Fox News, like, no, that's mean. Sorry.
What in the
no,
fuck?
No, I didn't mean Fox News. I'm like, what is it called when you're like, I don't know. You're jazzing up this information that I'm like, is it?
What, do you not believe it?
Continue.
Okay.
My study is not as recent, so now I'm like,
After only 2 weeks, it changed the glucose tolerance of these people.
is this in humans?
This is in humans.
Oh, shit.
This is in humans. And just wait till the second half of this study.
Oh my god.
So a glucose tolerance is a measure of like how your body moves sugar from your blood into your muscle.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. Say it one
and
more
so
time.
So like your glucose tolerance is like a measure of how readily the body moves sugar from the blood into muscle and fat.
Okay.
And they believe that possibly leads to weight gain and diabetes if your body doesn't do that very well.
Okay.
They found that there was a significant difference in the populations of bacteria before and after regular ingestion of artificial sweeteners. So in that 2 week period, the gut bacteria
2 weeks?
in 2 weeks of taking that, their gut bacteria changed drastically. Particularly those who took sucralose and saccharin.
But you're saying that like before this, they found people who weren't having artificial sweeteners.
There's obviously all different, like they have control groups. So they had a control group that ingested glucose and one that took a supplement that had like nothing in it, right? And then they have all these different groups on now the different artificial sweeteners. So they do their best to like control for the fact that some people we're comparing before and after. Maybe those people had artificial sweeteners in their life.
Yeah, like probably. Because a lot of studies actually they have trouble because they're trying to
Like,
test.
is anyone pure, quote
Yeah.
unquote?
They're trying to
Obviously,
test like a lot of the time with artificial sweetened drinks. And then they realize that like the control group still has a bunch of artificial sweetener because they're like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I love ketchup. And they're like, oh damn.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So this is just ultimately measuring the change, right? So
Yeah.
once they put someone on a regimen of every day having sucralose, they're noticing this glucose uptake problem and they're noticing a change in microbiome.
Okay.
And this is at whatever dose they're prescribing.
Okay.
Then part 2, because they're like, okay, what if this is correlation versus causation? You know, the biggest problem in the world in science. So they took the feces from those participants with elevated blood sugar levels, put the bacteria into germ-free mice by feeding them a slurry, was literally the words they used.
Not hot.
And they found that those mice then, their ability to regulate glucose was changed.
Okay.
So they know that the change in the gut microbe has impacted directly the glucose change. So that means that it's correlation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Of course, they still need to keep repeating this study and making sure that. But ultimately, it was to show they do, in fact, change your microbiome. And in this study showed that it changed your glucose.
You were literally doing the politician thing. You were like,
The hand.
They do, in fact. I was like, okay.
Obama.
Yeah, okay. Mine was an older study, so now I'm like, just throw it out the window. But the results were essentially, I don't even want to go into mine 'cause it's embarrassing.
Oh, why?
Just relax. Okay?
Wow. Okay, you're being paid off by the industry
No,
over here.
stop it. You are too. What are you trying to say?
What industry?
I don't know. Sugar? I don't know.
No.
The freaking sugar industry.
I think we all know. I'm part of the none of the
You
above.
work for Betty Crocker, my friend. Anyways, it was just that in the amounts that humans eat, it's not affecting the microbiome, and that so many of these things are metabolized before they even get low enough into the gut that it shouldn't affect your microbiome. It's an older study, and I don't even want to talk about it, and it didn't have anything to do with humans. Yours sounds really legit. Okay, fine. So it might be affecting your microbiome.
Yeah.
But...
And girl, I have another one.
Okay. You are working for Betty Crocker.
No, I am not suggesting you replace your
This is
sweeteners with sugar.
This is the thing. It's like, so what then? What now, my friend? Is it worse or better than sugar? I don't think it is. Worse.
Well, I think we can
or
learn
better.
a little bit of a lesson from this, that just because one thing becomes a problem, so we realize sugar in our society, at least where we're from in the West, is an issue. I think it's an issue everywhere. doesn't mean we can just find a replacement that's magic.
Yeah,
that there isn't a trade-off. Like, yes, there may be some benefits, and that benefit we thought would be easier to, because of the lower calories, control weight gain, but now we're realizing weirdly they're associated with weight gain in some people because the gut microbiome's being changed.
That is also okay. From what I understood from the studies on weight gain, diabetes, and these things, like there were some recent studies with lots of people. It was like, it's definitely not causing people to lose weight. Like the idea of artificial sweeteners when they were invented, not like in the 1800s when he tasted the chemical and was like, yum, but like more recently, like post 90s sugar is evil time, was they're like, okay, this is going to create a mass like weight loss revolution, which it has not done. They've studied many people. It does not mean that you're just going to lose weight. And I think from some of these, again, our surveys, they're not like what you just explained was a really interesting study involving a lot of like biochemistry. They're like, a lot of these people who are needing artificial sweeteners are likely people who in the first place are consuming a lot of sugar because
or processed food in general, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why would you be switching to a Diet Coke if you're not having a Coke?
Yeah.
Like, side note, I was not raised on Coca-Cola. When I drink it, it hurts. Like, I actually cannot drink soda.
That's called carbonation.
No, it's just everything about it. Like, when I put Coca-Cola in my mouth, I'm like, oh, so you want me to drink fizzy tar? Like, I'm like, oh, cool, that's a gorgeous brown color. I don't want my liquids brown, baby. Like, it's disgusting to me. Like, I actually look at it, I'm like, wow, everyone here is drinking sludge. Weird. But anyways, like, people who are drinking artificially sweetened drinks probably are drinking a lot of sugar in the first place.
Right.
And there are also other theories that these highly sweet artificial sweeteners, which are more sweet than sugar, just make people enjoy sugar more because it's like now you're training your tongue.
You're having
a
lot of it.
System.
Yeah.
Like,
I can have everything with this sweet taste, then you condition yourself to need it and want it.
Yes. I think that's interesting because we take protein powder. Can't you tell those watching on YouTube?
Just wait till summer till you see us.
Oh my God. My titties. The babies are going to be confused. They're going to say, mama, can I get milk? Anyways, I have been drinking protein powder. Canceled. And it has a lot of artificial sweetener. And I noticed that when I get one that doesn't have artificial sweetener, which I only did once, I was like, oh my God, this smoothie tastes so bland. And it actually tastes normal. It tastes like a normal smoothie with like fruit. And like there's still a lot of sugar in them. But I have changed my perception of sugar in the morning through artificial sweeteners, which I'm like, I hadn't thought about until I was reading these studies. Like, it makes me more triggered by sugar throughout the day than I ever have been before when I wasn't having artificial sweeteners.
It makes you more triggered? What? Sorry?
Like, now my quest and like satiation through sugar has changed. My baseline has changed because I'm now having all this artificial sweetener in the morning. Like, I can tell, like, I'm used to
you want the sweetness,
feeling.
And something
morning.
that's not sweet then probably tastes kind of even more dull.
Yeah, and I've never, prior to protein powder in the morning, ever had cared or wanted sugar in the morning. And I've noticed that now when I don't, I'm like, oh, where's my delicious breakfast? But in the past, that breakfast would have felt normal. It would have felt good enough to have like blueberries and fruit.
Yeah.
And so I think they're also saying that there's a chance that just because you're having an artificially sweetened drink now once a day doesn't mean that you're not still primed to have more sugar throughout your life. And it's not created the revolution that they thought it would in like 2014 when it started to really take off.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And I do think there's still a lot to be studied here. Like, that was one study I brought up.
Yeah.
It was a great study. It's really fascinating. I think, of course, like everything, you want to replicate it in different populations, try and do more and more so you can get to the bottom of like how much of this is correlation to groups of people who are just eating certain things, who already have other, are more prone to be eating other foods that might also be impacting their health and their microbiome and those things.
And I think also a lot of, you should talk to your doctor or dietitian if you're concerned about your sugar or artificial sugar intake, and they'll give you direct information catered to you, which is the most important part about all these things. We're a podcast and we talk in generalizations, and that's fun. But it's like a lot of the idea around it being good, artificial sweeteners, would be taking the Coca-Cola that you're going to drink every day, then slowly being like Diet Coke and slowly getting yourself to water or milk. Like, it's like a lot of these like scientists at the end of the day are like, well, if the other option's a sugary drink,
Right.
that's also bad for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. No one, I don't think anyone who's researching these artificial sweeteners is implying that we should switch back to sugar fully.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is sometimes hard when you're hearing all this negative artificial sweetener
Like, where
headlines.
do you go from here?
You go, oh, wait, it's bad. I need to go back to Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
When really, I think there is an argument to that these are better than sugar, but they're not as much as good as we've been told in 2015.
Yeah, and I don't have anything. This is just sort of like anecdotal. I'm sure there's research out there and we could do a bit more on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if having a Coca-Cola with sugar every day also impacts your microbiome.
Yeah,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
exactly. Sugar does impact your microbiome.
Any
Exactly.
sort of chronic consumption of basically anything is going to have an impact on your
Yes.
well-being and health.
So this is more
it's
about
one
tearing
thing if
down
you're,
the hope in
and
artificial sweetener.
I think it is important to note, like, yes, this one study I just said was over 2 weeks. But obviously every 2 weeks you're eating different things. And it's like, I don't want this to scare people to think like having a Diet Coke from time to time. I don't think you need to be worried about that. Having a real Coke from time to time, I really don't think you need to worry about that. I do think.
Okay, he's working for Coke now.
I do think it's worth considering, as much as if you're interested in health, for example, like what you're eating, period, and having a good mix of things. And of course you can eat sugar, and of course you can have artificial sweeteners, but like just have it in your mind, like even having just like, if you eat so much fruit every day, like that's probably more sugar than your body needs. It's still good.
Wait,
for
what?
you.
Really?
Yeah, like it's sugar, right? Like these are meant as like desserts. Like sugar is like fruit is nature's natural dessert that we wouldn't have had.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. My asshole as a gay man, a fruit that's your dessert. Whoa.
Okay, you need help. But
oh no, I hope there's not like a family listening to this in like a car, and all of a sudden like they're like,
eating
what?
that fruit?
Why did that just get said? No, like why did I just like totally get so inappropriate?
Well, we started the podcast about the oldest dildo, so I think they would have turned it off
okay,
then.
Good. I was just like, oh
or
my
they're
God,
just
Greg.
like sexually liberated family who can talk about those things and it's okay. You know? That'd be great. Are we gonna?
I really hope that this is playing in some sexually liberated family's road trip.
The last thing I was gonna say is there was another major study that found artificial sweeteners not only change your bacterial composition, but they can turn some of the bacteria pathogenic inside of you. So this was saccharin, sucralose, and aspartame. Why are you looking at me like that?
No, I'm just like, God damn, I was doing so much research. I never found these juicy, mean ones.
So they basically like attach to these cells called CoCO2 cells, which are epithelial cells in the in the wall of your intestine, and says at a concentration equivalent of 2 cans of diet soft drink, all 3 artificial sweeteners significantly increase the adhesion of both E. coli and E. facialis to intestinal CoCO2 cells. CACO, thank you, CACO, and differentially increase the formation of biofilms, and biofilms are less sensitive to antimicrobial resistance.
Like, if you're chugging Diet Coke, hopefully you don't get exposed to E. coli.
Yeah.
In the
Or
wrong
just
way.
like any like bacterial infection. In these studies, they were looking at those, obviously, but it was like they can secrete toxins and impact you from the inside out, basically. Again, this is like at pretty high doses, having it every single day chronically.
Yeah.
I think...
But
and it's just one study.
Some people do.
I think a lot of people actually do. And as you mentioned it, I never thought about our bread. I did think about my protein powder because I knew it's like pretty low calorie, and then I was like, oh my God, of course it literally has sucralose.
It's
sucralose.
so I'm also like, relax protein powder. Like
I know. I
need
just
you to do this.
Don't put sugar in it. Don't put anything. I'm gonna mix my own stuff into this.
But I think maybe a lot of people don't want to do that.
No, I know, and then people will love the idea of it just like tasting.
And it's all
good.
like all the like stupid like branding, like Volt energy, like it's gonna break it. And like when you drink it, you're like, holy shit! Like it's so sweet.
So I will say, for kind of like my end of this
Yeah, I'm
pod,
like, where are you on this? I can't tell. Sounds like you.
When I
love
was doing my research,
sugar.
I freaked out a bit. I was like, oh my God. Because I have these protein scoops every day. That's outside of that. I was like, I'm not really that worried. Like, I don't think I eat that many things.
Although you put ketchup on your cereal, that's a lot.
Yeah, I love ketchup on my cereal.
No, it's side note. I did know someone who put ketchup on his cereal once at my camp. We'll never forget it. It was unbelievable.
That's revolting. Like,
it was actually revolting. And then they'd be like, "Oh, we're in the morning. Like, obviously the ketchup's not out." I remember the first day. He goes, "Oh, where's the ketchup?" I go, "I don't know. Maybe behind the counter until lunch." And then he goes and he gets it. I will never forget it. He puts it on. And to this day, I'm like, he must have been wanting like attention, but he did it every single morning.
Ew, like on what kind of cereal?
We're talking Cheerios and milk. Oh
okay,
my God,
we
I can't even talk
this.
about
We
it.
can't talk about this.
Anyways, he had artificial sweetener first thing in the morning, like we do now, but his was in
Oh
a
my
different
goodness.
mechanism.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't get it, but I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like more and more. I keep coming back to this idea. A lot of people already do, and it's like, how can you focus on a more sort of like whole foods diet? Even protein powder being an artificial like synthesized food.
I know.
And to be honest, like I started that mainly when I was like, okay, when you're a vegetarian or a vegan, which right now I'm like kind of in the mix of things, but I was like, it's really hard to get all the protein, especially if I was like trying to get more fit and stuff.
But
that's why I started it.
There's protein powders without artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, I had never. Now I'm like,
we
I need to
buy.
look into
Yes.
that. I'm fine with them tasting bland. I'm not eating it for the taste.
I'm gonna sweeten
And
it with
then-
some papaya.
Yeah, I mean, papaya is not like that sweet, but like,
Okay, it is. I'm so no.
it's not like mango level sweet.
Justice. Side note: justice for papaya. Like I am sick of people being like, it tastes like feet. I'm like, no, you don't know anything. And then I slap them to the ground. I love papaya. I think it is so good. I don't understand why there's so much hate for one of the most gorgeous fruits in the world.
So as a scientist, I would imagine you could understand people have different taste buds and different preferences.
It's just the hate. It's like, whoa, calm down. Like, what did papaya do to you? Like,
yeah,
I feel like
think
if someone
it is
doesn't
ignorance
like,
and being not used to it. Like it's just for people, at least like in Canada, if you're from like not a country like that has papaya growing naturally, you're just not used to it.
Oh, I see. Because I'm like, if someone doesn't like,
I used to feel like I
they're
didn't
like,
like-
oh, I don't like kiwi, but like with papaya, they're like papaya.
Well, I think I can't. I mean, some people hate cilantro because it tastes like soap. There's like 50% of the world's population. Some people hate asparagus because they can smell it, and then another half of the people can't smell that pea. So it's just like it's okay if people.
fine.
But I agree that there's probably some cultural insensitivity there.
I never thought about it like that. That's interesting because it's mostly people in Canada getting mad, but it's like, oh, it's because
Or people that we know who probably like. I honestly I don't love papaya, and I used to really not like it. But now that I've eaten more of it, you just get used to it, and you go, okay, I understand. I can taste the nuance in this and the parts that are really good.
Well, papaya is better than artificial sweeteners and sugar, my friends, coming out of Betty Crocker's.
Yeah, and even
bags.
speaking of sugar, like synthesized sugar, like table sugar, is going to be processed in your body differently than sugar in a whole food like an apple or a banana. Yes, they both can spike your, like blood sugar levels, your insulin and all this, but in general, the fruit version is healthier for you.
I also read 2 studies completely contradicting each other. One I thought was so interesting and juicy, which is that artificial sweetener, it goes on your tongue, binds to the ligands, G protein involved signaling. Your brain is like sugar, and it starts to prepare your body to process sugar. And then when it doesn't, it messes with your like insulin levels. Then I read one right after that was like directly related to that and was like, this is why that whole thing's wrong. So anyways, this is why, again, this is a very controversial subject. And depending on what you're reading and what expert is on the show you're watching, you might get some really intense answers. But I think where I came down is like when something tastes like sugar in your mouth outside of fruit, or like you're saying, even maybe a lot of fruit, you should be consciously thinking like, do I need this? What is it? How is it impacting my health? Whether it's artificial sweetener or actual sugar, it's having an impact on you, and just like minimizing that. It's so boring and not fun, but it's like minimizing
Or
the
save
amount.
it for like special events and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Not
I
special-
just think a lot of people, that's not their life. Like their day to day is that they have routines around like a sugary drink. And I think artificial sweeteners could be used as a way to maybe slowly wean yourself off of it, or just knowing that if you need that sugary drink every day, it's just having an impact on your health, regardless of whether it's diet or not.
Yeah. I hope I haven't like spooked anyone too much. I don't think this is something worth causing a panic about. There's still a lot of research. Again, your microbiome is impacted by everything you eat. So it's like people laugh because it's like on the one hand, and now I'm afraid of artificial sweeteners, but like I'll go drink on the weekend.
Yeah, I
mean?
love thinking
And
about
not
all
think
those
about-
things, like someone hacking a literal dart cigarette, just talking to you about how like it's like that you need to do CrossFit every day or something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you are sucking on smoke into your thinnest bilayer of your body, your goddamn lung.
So
Not the
that's
thinnest,
worth
but-
to keep in mind. If it affects you and you want to make a change, that's totally cool. But it's like put these things into perspective. It's not en masse causing like cancerous and killing people.
Yeah.
They're regulated as safe by the FDA. As more research comes out, there might be like restrictions of how much can be in any one food, but it's not like
There already are restrictions. There are restrictions around that too.
Yeah,
Like,
but not
you're
to say those
allowed
can't
just-
change. Science is always changing. Also, food science fads always change based on science and not based on
That's why we're
science.
talking about
we
it,
probably
Chris.
will look back on this era and just be like, either everything we were eating and believing was wrong and stupid, or who knows, like.
No, this is just the fad of the rejection of the time when Diet Coke was popular. Like we've just lived long enough to now be like, kidding.
And it's
not.
the era of the microbiome, which I think is
Yeah.
very interesting, and I think so much is going to come from that, which is fascinating and interesting. But it's also going to lead to like, I don't know, an exploitation.
Let's
of
do
those
it.
experiments.
Okay, let's figure out an angle to do another episode about it because
Microbiome?
Yeah, because it does feel like it's a catch-all right now
Yeah.
to spook or make you buy anything. And it's so complicated that I just think we always need a reminder of what is even
just like
going
what's
on.
the kind of updated version of what new research is out there, what you can be thinking about, is it worth thinking about?
And it's so placebo vibes. Like when I spent $140 on those pills, every time I took one, I was like, hell yeah, this is working. Because it's like, it better. I just spent $140. Like my brain, I didn't feel any different. But every time I like took a shite that week, I was like, that's the best shite I've ever seen. Because it's like, it better be. But it honestly probably was just because I spent a bunch of money on it and it like said microbiome on it.
Well, I think we can end there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that was interesting. I am spooked and also not. Okay. So that's where I'm going to end it. You're on your phone. You're just writing down an idea.
I'm writing down the idea for the new microbiome.
Am I ending the pod? Like,
You're
or is there
ending the
anything else?
pod.
I'm
And
trying
if
to wait.
anyone needs to know, I'm not that spooked. But that's just because I'm not really that spooked in general.
And you also don't consume a lot, right? I think everyone's in a different space. Like,
Yeah.
neither of us drink pop, except like if I go to like the movie theater and get a combo with pop. So I think I'm not
Even
overly-
then, I literally go. I film because I'm truly a baby, and this is why you should raise your kid without pop. I go and I fill my thing with 1/2 to 3/4 pop, and then I put the Sprite in because I'm like, it hurts if it's full Sprite.
And then he gets butter all over it, and then gets those powder things, powder ketchup things, which is definitely artificial sweetener.
But no, it's not sweetener. That is like artificial salt. Okay, another upcoming video. We will end here. If you go to Cineplex, this is for the Canadian people out there. If you go to Cineplex, and yeah, it's a bit of a monopoly. Maybe sometimes we're going to the local theater. I do encourage all to do that too. But when you're going to Cineplex, you buy your popcorn. You can ask to layer the butter. So they put the butter in the middle. That's also really important. Then you got the butter on top. And then I always do this joke. I go, can I get a bag of cancer powder? And they go, excuse me? And I'm like, the ketchup, the dill pickle. And they're like, that's not funny. That's just powder. Then you get it for free. You put on. Like 2 weeks ago, go to the movie theaters. They're charging $1.99 now for the cancer powder.
Good for them.
I want to do a video on that powder and be like, is it cancer powder? Okay. Because my favorite's ketchup. I love when the next morning I wake up and I have a French manicure of red on my nails from eating the ketchup popcorn. That's when I know it's been a good night. And some people think it's disgusting and they just have plain popcorn. I like when mine's soupy and I like when mine's red.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening / watching, and we will chat to you next week. See ya.